Dear participants, dear colleagues, as IAF Vice President for Diversity Initiatives in Science and Academic Relations and leader in the development of the IAF Space Economic Platform, ICEP, it is my pleasure to welcome you today to this exciting session on how to support the startups ecosystem, part of the IAF GNF Space Conversation Series. Today's session is organized by Airbus Defence and Space, and it proposes you to learn from key space incubators or accelerator programs. The panelists will describe their respective programs and reflect on their experience supporting space entrepreneurs. The objective of this webinar is therefore to see what programs exist to support the many entrepreneurs that are entering the space sector, to help them mature their concept, grow their business, and accelerate the transformation of innovative ideas into valuable businesses. I hope you will enjoy the session, and I'm very pleased to now give the word to the moderator of this session, Pierre-Alexis Jamal, Director International and New Business Space Systems at Airbus Defence and Space. Thank you and enjoy the session.
Thank you, Deganit, for the introduction. So before starting to present Airbus and the panelists, I wanted to welcome you for this great event and this exciting panel we have today. Before we start, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the event. So please use and go to slido.com and put the hashtag IFGNF series to access the location where you can put your question. I will have a look and then we are going to address them at the end of the webinar. So thank you again, the IAF, Deganit, for organizing this event. It's my pleasure to say a few words about Airbus Defence and Space and how we support the space ecosystem, mostly in Europe. And then I will introduce the panelists so they can introduce their program from all over the world. So that will be a great event today. So shortly about Airbus. So I think most of you know our main line of aircraft, but we're also leading helicopters and space products. If now I go in space, we are working and developing many satellite and hardware for space. So for Earth observation, for example, with the last generation of Pléiades satellite that has been launched a few weeks ago, with telecom satellite, with the flexible OneSat platform, in human space flight on board the ISS station, in launchers as well, together with Ariane, in navigation, in space exploration. I will also mention a few words on our activities because it's where I belong, in equipment, in telecommunication in space, and of course in on-orbit servicing and in space manufacturing topics. So we are covering a lot of topics at Airbus Space. Now I wanted to give a quick look to exploration topic because it's my domain, and to show you a few activities on which we are working on linked to moon exploration. So of course, you know, in Europe, the European contribution to the Artemis program is Orion, and Airbus is manufacturing the service module. You see that on the upper left corner. We are also working for the European Space Agency on a few concepts. You see on the right corner a cargo vehicle that can go to moon called CLTV. On the bottom left, we are working on a lander concept called European Large Logistic Lander. And we are also focusing some effort on the moon surface with utilization of space resources. So that's exploration activities on which we are working on at Airbus. Another interesting topic that may interest our audience today, it's Bartolomeo. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are starting your startup and you need to test and demonstrate your system in LEO, low Earth orbit, this platform, which is attached to the ISS, might be a very good spot for you, where you can put a payload outside, which will be connected to the ISS, and you can get the data, you can get all the information around that. So if you are interested on that after the panel, please contact me. And to go now to the topic of this webinar, which is about supporting the space ecosystem, I just wanted to highlight some initiatives that we are taking at Airbus in Europe mostly. The first one is around challenges. We are developing Earth observation challenges. One also about quantum computing. One together with other partners linked to InnoSpace Masters. We are also supporting hackathon like Act in Space, which is a global hackathon. And in terms of helping, supporting startups in their everyday life, we are partnering with ESA, with the Business Incubation Center network that is in Europe. And also us internally, we develop the Airbus Biz Lab, where we also host and help startups in few centers in Europe. And we are also developing a venture arm where we are going a bit beyond and help also to finance the development of startups. So that's where Airbus is active today. Now let's move to the interesting program that exists also all over the world. We've got a great number of people in the webinar. So wherever you are in the world, I'm sure you will find an interesting program for you. So let me introduce the speaker that we've got online today. So I will start with Thomas Fouquet. So Thomas is a tech entrepreneur, having spent more than 10 years in California, starting companies in the biotech, deep tech, and digital sectors, as well as being an investor. And today, Thomas is advisor to the director in charge of innovation, application, and science at the French space agency CNES, where he leads efforts to foster the new space entrepreneurship spirit in and out of the agency. The second panelist we have today is Rachel Harris, who has a doctorate in economics. Is currently leading two of the Creative Destruction Lab newest sites at Georgia Tech in US and HEC Paris in France. Third speaker is Sudhir Kumar. Sudhir is the Associate Director in the Capacity Building Program Office at ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, and is responsible for industrialization, technology transfer, technical infrastructure, and outreach activities of ISRO. Prior to ISRO, he served in Tata Steel for 6 years, where he implemented various quality systems. We have also Tim Parsons. Tim is chair of SmartSat CRC startup focused Aurora Space Cluster, as well as chair of the board of Australia's Peak Space Industry Group, the Space Industry Association of Australia. Recently appointed as Euroconsult's representative director in Sydney, Tim is deep tech focused angel investor, thought leader, facilitator, and mentor who consults widely for clients in space, digital, and startup entrepreneurship. And the last speaker we have from China, Chris Teng, was graduated from Purdue University with bachelor's degree in actuarial science and applied statistics. She is now working as a director of international affairs and insurance businesses of FutureSpace, a leading company of new space industry in China. So not to lose more time, let's have a first roundtable. And the first question I will ask to the panelists is if they could introduce and explain their respective program and how this program supports and develops local startup ecosystem. So to start, I propose to go from east to west. So let's start with Tim. So Tim, if you want to share your screen, I will give you now the right to share. Thank you, Tim. You are still on mute, I think, Tim.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, terrific. So, I'm going to try and share my slides now. So I will just do that really quickly. So apologies for the delay. Too many windows. So what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about the way that we think about growing an ecosystem. So I'm going to, I'm hoping you can see this.
Yeah.
Terrific. So essentially, the way that we think about growing the ecosystem here in Australia, we're trying to reimagine how to create a space ecosystem. We have not had a history of government investing deeply in space services and systems for defense or for civilian. That is just beginning. And so over the last few years, going back to about 2015, really we had people pushing from the bottom up. And you'll notice on the left-hand side, this sort of average capability, this scale is technical readiness level, investment readiness level, commercial readiness level. Of course, 9 into technical readiness level means flight, the highest level. And of course, commercial readiness level, again, you're ready to sell, and investment readiness level, you are okay to raise investment. So the average capability for our startups has actually been quite low. And that's because we really haven't had the local companies here yet. So it's been a push process. And where we're at now, we're starting to come up this first hill where we're starting to engage with big aerospace primes. We're starting to get research organizations funding startups. So the organization that I'm part of, Aurora, which is one of these, is actually funded by a research organization who recognize that the startups are going to be how we grow the industry. And then we have other players such as Delta V, which connects together the different startups around access to space and missions. We have a group called Moonshot, who are angel investors. They're starting to fund some of these early stage companies. And then we have bigger players like the Space Industry Association who are trying to pull it all together. And as we climb up this capability ladder, we're expecting to start to see commercial and government procurement. So we have some big procurement projects coming out of defense. We're hoping to have big commercial projects coming out, procurement projects coming out of both the private sector and also civil space. But currently, those are not focused yet on startups. So we need these primes in the middle here to kind of help pull up these startups. So there's this idea in our ecosystem of how we drive this push process of investors, talent, and founders, and then drive this pull process where commercial and government customers pull us up. And another way to look at this is a flywheel. So, fundamentally, we start with talent, inspiration, and infrastructure. We've actually had a lot of people in Australia who have skills, who've even been exposed to the space industry overseas, who've come back to Australia. And we've also had people from overseas who've moved to Australia who are very talented in space. Those people are our founders. And then we've had these anchor investors. They've worked with researchers and smaller customers through to primes and large customers. And that's the flywheel that we're building right now. And so right now we're at the stage where we've got innovation challenges like the global ones that Airbus is running, as well as ones that we've run. NASA Space Apps Challenge is another one. We're increasingly giving our startups access to test infrastructure, things like flat sats, ways to test integration, both software and hardware. And now for the first time, we're starting to see the first flight opportunities where startups can pitch to fly payloads, spacecraft buses, spacecraft subsystems to try to get TRL-9. We have about 2 or 3 companies that now have TRL-9. We need about 50. And increasingly, we're also orientating ourselves towards opportunities with Artemis, with bigger missions in Earth observation, communications, etc. And so this flywheel is something that we're in the process of building, and hopefully we can start to make this also open to international partners, so we can fly on, for example, Bartholomew, or on the JAXA Kibo exterior facility. So that's kind of a little bit of a sort of a summary of how we're thinking about our strategy here in Australia. and a few of the programs that we have. I'll stop sharing. Hopefully that was to time.
Very interesting. Thank you, Tim. So now let's move to China with Chris Teng. I already have your slides, so let's move to your presentation, Chris. I'll put myself in mute.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So this is Chris from FutureSpace. Our company, FutureSpace, is the only ecological platform of commercial space industry in China, and we are committed to promoting the development and commercialization of the space industry, as well as serving the space industry startups. So next slide, please. Right, thank you. FutureSpace has initiated the first space VC fund in China in 2005. And we have made numerous of investments and accumulated plenty of market and human resources, as well as some specialized knowledge throughout the years. And now we are providing industry research and consulting services. We do have our own industrial fund. We are organizing, undertaking, and participating in several domestic and international activities. And we are taking part in the planning, constructing, and operation of several domestic space industrial base. And at the meantime, we have our membership system, which includes about over 130 companies or institutes. We help them with financing issues, market resource connection, and meet their needs by providing various of other services. And we are also working on promoting the globalization of the industry and facilitating international communication and cooperation. You can also see FutureSpace actively working in some islands, and we have branches all over the China. Next slide, please. At FutureSpace, we carry out research work of the industry and the market of domestic and foreign companies, and build up FutureSpace new space information management system, as you can see on the screen. And we publish annual and seasonal research reports on the development and investment of commercial space industry. In the meantime, we provide professional consultation on commercial space industry and also undertake the industrial development planning, investment planning, and promotion planning of the state and local governments to facilitate the development of space industry as well as the growth of local economy. Okay, next slide, please. As we believe that, as I mentioned before, that we have industrial fund that is focusing on rapid growing or high potential small to medium sized enterprises. The investments cover the whole production chain that includes launching vehicle and satellite design, manufacture and management, satellite communication operation and remote sensing operation, and also space financial services, and etc. And as you can see on the screen is a layout of our investments. Next slide, please. As we believe that business events can promote the communication and further reinforce connection, FutureSpace has been actively organizing and participating in domestic and international conferences and exhibitions for years, and has established an outstanding image and positive reputation in China. The National China Space Conference, which is known as China Space Day, is an annual event that was first initiated and organized by FutureSpace. And that one was held on every year, April 24th. This year it was in Nanjing, China. And also the 2020 International Astronautical Congress that was delivered online due to the global pandemic issue. FutureSpace, as one of the members of IAF, has hosted a China Parallel session in 2020. Okay, now next slide, please. And for the industrial bases, apart from the ones that we are working on, FutureSpace is also working closely with several existing space industries, as you can see. We help local enterprises to go abroad, as well as foreign companies to set up their branches or launch their projects in Hainan Free Trade Zone. Oh, by the way, we are planning to establish a global remote sensing data trading center in the Free Trade Zone. Please contact us if you're interested in that. Okay, next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, our membership system, which provides membership benefits, services, and activities. The system includes more than 130 enterprises, some of which were invested by us. So we provide financing, market resource connecting, and a variety of other services to help them growing. We have launched a global space trading e-platform to fulfill the supply chain demand that was called Space Factory that provides upstream and downstream supply chain services of commercial space companies to reduce transaction costs, shorten transaction cycles, and build a safe commercial environment. It is somehow similar to an Amazon for space industry that you order something online. FutureSpace and for the insurance, FutureSpace has also carried out in-depth cooperation with PICC, which is the China's largest issuer of property and casualty insurance. Its Xi'an branch and FutureSpace jointly established China's first commercial aerospace insurance innovation research institute to provide comprehensive insurance services to the enterprises. And we are also working on on-orbit delivery services. The two projects listed are FutureSpace's own projects that are used to realize some personal one-stop turnkey solutions. And I have to mention that we are also working on promotions on working on promoting the globalization of the industry and facilitating the international communication and cooperation. Our team has a strong international background. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so much for the introduction. Thank you so much for paying attention. You can find more information on our website, and also the website for the Space Factory is listed. Please contact us for any further details. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Right on time. And you mentioned a key point, or also a key aspect in doing an entrepreneur project is the ability of meeting people and networking and getting all those information. We've got some question in the chat about post-pandemic, how the new space will react on that. So we'll address that later. Thank you. Now let's move to Sudhir Kumar from ISRO. I'll give you the right to share your screen, Sudhir.
Thank you. First, let me thank IAF and Airbus for giving the opportunity for getting connected across the globe. A very important startup session, startup ecosystem. Let me start with the Indian startup program before going to the space startup program. India has been the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, expected to grow at a rate of 12 to 15% a year. India has about 50,000 startups as of 2018, and over 1,300 startups added during 2019 alone. The cumulative valuation of the startups has now crossed $55 billion, and over 18% of the startups are now leveraging deep tech, and has seen 40% cumulative average in the last 5 years. And 43% startups are B2B and 21 focused in the global markets. More than 335 active incubators and accelerators are in India, and 57% of them have been located in the tier 1 cities, and 3.9 lakhs to 4.3 lakhs jobs have been created out of the startups. This is the entire ecosystem. In fact, when 2016, our President of India launched the Startup India program in a formal way, the federal government has assured the simplification and hand-holding support for the startups, the institutional infrastructure support from the ministries and departments, and seed funding supports in the early stages, and industry academia partnership and incubation support. And there are two leading institutions in India by name Startup India as well as Atal Innovation Mission under the flagship of Niti Aayog. They are supporting these startup programs with the help of ministries and departments. And if you just see the Startup India scheme, the startup is defined with the date of incorporation should not be exceeding 10 years. and type of the companies are private and registered firms, should not exceed 100 crores INR Indian rupees, and original entity should be involved basically in the innovation and the scalable. But of course, to repeat some of the statistics as per the NASCOM report, 8,900, 9,000 startups were there developed in 2014 to year 19. This is what I have already told in my summary slide. But of course, when you come to the Space Startup Encouragement Program, based on the federal government's directions and guidelines, the ISRO has taken up a specific startup encouragement program, especially for encouraging the indigenization and building the competition niche areas in the space domain, and the entrepreneurship and the employment and self-reliance, more to say, because majority of the youth who is coming out of the colleges, they should be self-reliant, because you must be knowing India has got 60% of the youth below 35 years. And the focus should be on disruptive and advanced technologies and production of the services and innovative practices to optimize the cost of the launch, affordable applications to reach all corners of the society, and targeted segments could be small business and concerns. When the readiness of the startup system has been envisaged, some support has to be given the startup in the early stages in terms of funding and incentives, incubations and partnerships, mentoring and handholding. While the funding at present being extended by the federal government, the incubation and partnerships are available both in private sector and government sector and universities, and mentoring and handholding is being taken right now by the Indian Space Research Organization. But of course, there is a typical model which has been conceived, the technology transfers which have been identified, because ISRO is very famous for identifying the technologies and disseminating to the industry at affordable cost, and academia institution interaction is quite effective in India. Especially ISRO is moderating between the academia and the industry to see that the proper mechanism is established for proper transfer of the knowledge, what has been done in the fundamental research, and dedicated cells for interaction has been conceived. When it comes to the infrastructure support, the shared capital intensive infrastructure, because the startups cannot afford to establish huge infrastructure, where ISRO is declared, the government of India declared that ISRO facilities can be made use of by the startups in the initial stages. Once they mature, they can establish their own facilities. And ISRO Space Technology Incubation Centers, ISRO has established in the 6 regions, 6 incubation centers which are linked up to the academia, which encourages the outgoing students in the entrepreneur field. And especially the ISRO is encouraging the buyback promotion, because if the startups identify the focused areas, ISRO can promise them to buy back, so that the startups can stabilize themselves financially and technically. This is the exclusive programs, and ISRO, whatever the technology is being developed in ISRO will be given for the startups and MSMEs for spin-off applications. So the overall strategy or framework is like this. The ISRO will identify the focused areas. One document will be published, an announcement of opportunities can be given. Once the interested startups or MSMEs can pick up the ideas, because this is basically both government and ISRO and the private, the startups should get benefited in a sustainable way. And of course, the focus areas right now we are working is propulsion, green propellants, electric propulsion systems, environmental and support systems, geospatial information using machine learning and artificial intelligence, space situational awareness and debris management, application of a drone, quantum computing, navigation, application of robotics, AR/VR techniques, sensors and instrumentation, materials and composites, and additive manufacturing. This is not exhaustive, but these are all main areas which are being focused with the industry. And the process cycle would be, if there would be 2 or 3 phases, where initial phase would be the proof of concept development and proto development and productionization. Currently, there are more than 35 startups are working closely with ISRO in the following areas, namely small satellite launch vehicle development, satellite navigation, robotics, green propellants, small satellite development, space situational awareness, remote sensing, and of course, remote sensing is an enormous amount of this. A lot of data is being given to the industries, both at free of cost and affordable cost, mainly because of the vast geographical opportunity in India. Many in the startups are working in this area, the other applications and launch vehicle components and launch vehicle development. Especially some of the startups, they have developed their own small satellite launchers, and the ISRO is supporting them for testing as well as launching. Of course, in collaboration with the Government of India, we have recently launched a challenge on propulsion, geospatial information, robotics. More than 7 startups were selected in this campaign or competition, and more than INR 5 million per startup is being offered to them for making the proof of concept. And right now, the active this one is seed fund startup seed fund scheme. Recently, Honorable Prime Minister of India announced 945 crores Indian rupees, which can be spent in another 5 years through incubators. So this program is on, and we have already conducted several workshops. Even Airbus was one of the co-partner with us in India, and several startups are applying to this program. We hope that many startups will get benefited out of this program. Thank you. Thanks a lot. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Sudhir, for the presentation. Now let's move to Thomas. I'll share my screen here. Thomas, floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Per-Alexis. Thank you, ZIF, for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so the first slide, it's 3 keywords, dreaming, innovating, and collaborating. Actually, dreaming triggers innovation, and you cannot innovate by yourself, so you need to collaborate. And next slide, Per-Alexis, please. Today at CNES, the French Space Agency, we have a clear goal, is to make any space entrepreneurs, to help any space entrepreneur makes their dream come true. Making the dream come true of any entrepreneur, it's bringing their technology to market. And today, there are numerous, I would say, opportunities for business services when we're thinking about space applications, and many markets using and leveraging space solution from communication, observation, navigation in different markets that high growth today, like mobility, all about agri-technology, climate change, of course, and so on. So next slide, seeing, I would say, the big wave, which is a new space wave, which is very global. Pierre-Alexis, next slide. We decided to create a program named Connect by CNES. And with that name, you have everything, right? We want to make and help entrepreneurs make the right connection to grow their opportunity from an idea to a prototype to a commercially viable business. So Connect by CNES, next slide, Pierre-Alexis, please. Connect by CNES is a program by CNES with a clear offer for entrepreneurs, going from expertise using the many laboratories we have at the Space Agency and all our experts, the technical and the business, I would say, side. Access to funding. We having now created some specific financing vehicle for early stage funding, especially like space ticket. We also providing education through different summer school or program to educate the entrepreneurs to space opportunities on the technical and business side. We're providing support in terms of communication to space entrepreneurs, French entrepreneurs that want to bring, I would say, their idea to market and potential partnership with other entrepreneurs or other companies. And also we have a strong pillar to that Connect by CNES program, which is ideation and incubation. So we co-founded with ESA IT in Space, like Pierre-Alexis mentioned it in the introduction. IT Space is a global hackathon today that would help entrepreneurs nurture ideas for new space and hopefully bringing those ideas to market through the support of CNES, ESA, or industrial partners like Airbus. And recently we started an accelerator program with in co-partnership with Germany named Space Founders. Is one of the few, I would say, space-focused accelerator. Is based in Toulouse, in the south of France, and in Munich. And Space Founders, the first, I would say, cohort of accelerated startups is going to be in September. And we'll start as a selection now. You can go on spacefounders.eu. And this accelerator program is very ambitious. It's a 3-month intensive accelerating program when we're going to educate the startups to the potential of their business ideas. We're going to support them in the development to the end stage of development of their product or services. And we're going to make connection for them with the right partners to develop their businesses, of course, in front of VCs as well. So you see, Connect by CNES is a very focused program for space entrepreneurs willing to develop their idea and bringing it to market. Next slide, please, Pierre-Alexis. Of course, when we're thinking about space application, I would say we're going from the orbit to Earth, but space commercialization is going everywhere in the universe, right? So we can commercialize the orbit and going from low Earth orbit to the moon, to Mars. And so CNES clearly is seeing the opportunity and to help our entrepreneurs being very ambitious and think big, having big ideas. So today, I can announce that we're started, next slide, please, Pierre-Alexis, a specific program for the moon, because the moon is a cross-industry ecosystem today with a big potential for commercialization and what we call the lunar economy, and many sectors of activities, robotics, mining, logistics, construction, and so on. So next slide, Pierre-Alexis, please. So targeting the moon, we decided to, okay, we need to develop a form of a forum for all the entrepreneurs willing to think being going to the moon and building and federating a vibrant moonshot community, right? And so we started in March of that year, next slide, Pierre-Alexis, the Moonshot Institute. And this institute has a very clear ambition is to federate our community, to build an ecosystem to and for the moon, going from, of course, academia, public actors, to the entrepreneurs, to big corporations, all working together for a common mission, right? Bringing technology to the moon and making the future market of that lunar economy. So we have 4, I would say, pillars on that Moonshot Institute: educating and training, educating the entrepreneurs, training the future explorer or worker of the moon. And we having strong already institution partnership with us on that. Ideation as well. Ideation is very important to drive research and drive commercialization. So we have this research pillar as well through our program for exploration at CNES named Spaceship. And this program is focusing on the moon, but also visioning Mars. And so it's very focused on research. And the last pillar is commercialization, leveraging, of course, our program and Connect by CNES and the Accelerator Space Founders. And coming up, you see, is missing one brick. Well, we will announce in a couple of weeks from now a special program for entrepreneurs having a strong idea for the future commercial market of the moon. And we are announcing something very special for them to help them bringing ideas to market. So there will be another program focused 100% on the moon. All right, so I think the last slide, Pierre-Alexis. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Very interesting initiatives you are taking. Thanks a lot for sharing that. And now let's move to the Creative Destruction Lab with Rachel.
Okay. Oh, you're going to share my screen. Perfect.
Yeah, you can tell me. Yeah, sure.
Okay, that's great. So nice to meet everyone. The Creative Destruction Lab was founded by an economist at the University of Toronto almost 10 years ago. And when the CDL was founded, it was because this particular economist was looking to solve a specific problem or fill a gap with this program. And the problem that I'll describe now is that if you look at a map and look at the density of startups across North America, across the world, you're going to see a huge mountain in Silicon Valley. And you're just going to see sort of little mounds in a bunch of these other sort of areas that we think of hotspots like Boston, Toronto, New York, etc. However, if you swap around the map and you look at now the density of university research breakthroughs, the map would look very different. You'd see mountains in Boston, in New York, in Toronto, also in Silicon Valley. And so the main sort of problem that we're trying to solve is, why do these local ecosystems have difficulty commercializing their university research? Next slide. And so, there's been lots of studies done on this. It's not the lack of ideas or the lack of hustle or really even the lack of capital. Next slide. Our main hypothesis is that it is a failure in the market for high quality judgment. And what do we mean by judgment? We mean that, as an example, if you were the CEO of a company and you have a list of 100 different things that you could be doing or should be doing, what would be, the top 3 that you should focus on right now, and which ones should you prioritize later? We find that especially for the founders who are coming into our program, ones with sort of a deep domain expertise in their particular area of science, they have difficulty doing this just because they're not experienced entrepreneurs. Next slide. So to help create this market for judgment, we've created a 9-month not-for-profit program. So our program is completely free for founders, no fees or equity, and it's aimed at founders that are sort of at the pre-seed to sort of sometimes post-Series A stage. And it's a program where successful operators are chosen as mentors. So people who have started, scaled, sold successful businesses before, and through this process have gained this particular business judgment that we're talking about. And they're asked to give this business judgment advice to our founders. However, it's not just sort of general business judgment advice, it's very specific business judgment advice on what are the 3 most important things each company needs to prioritize, sort of at the expense of all else, over these 8-week sprints that we run. And so over the 9-month program, we have time for approximately 5 of these 8-week sprints that run sort of one after the other. And at the beginning of each of these 8-week sprints, all sort of 30 of our mentors and all 25 space companies, they would all travel to Toronto pre-COVID. Now it's all online, of course, to participate in sort of a day-long event. And so, because we're sort of short on time here, I won't go into too much detail, but through sort of a series of, small group and large room discussion sessions, the purpose of this day is for mentors to help each and every one of these 25 space companies to dial in on, what are the 3 most important things they need to be working on over the next 8 weeks, and also be very clear on the why are they working on these, sort of now versus later. Next slide. They then go back to, wherever they're from to continue to build their business. Right now, all of our founders in the space program really do come from all over the world, India, Europe, Africa, etc. 8 weeks later, after this objective setting session happens in Toronto, they come back. They give us an update on what they've accomplished, what they struggled with, what they're looking for now. And our mentors then go through the exact same process with these companies to help them set 3 new objectives for the next 8 weeks. And the whole process starts again, and we do this sort of 5 times over. So we currently have about 10 sites running across 10 different university business schools, including HEC Paris, Georgia Tech, University of Oxford, University of Toronto, etc., all over North America, and 2 locations now in Europe. each site chooses to specialize on something, in particular based on their university or ecosystem strengths. And so our space program runs at the University of Toronto location in conjunction with sort of our founding mentor, Chris Hadfield. And next year, across the entire network, we will take in approximately 700 plus companies. And so of those companies, about 25 will be focused specifically on different types of space technologies. And so just as a reminder, applications are now live on our website if you're interested in applying. And thank you, Pierre-Alexis.
Thank you, Rachel. A very interesting program as well. So I hope this first roundtable was of interest to the audience, to know a bit more about all of those programs from all over the world. Now in the last 10-15 minutes we have, I wanted to ask the panelists from their experience and by supporting those startups, what are the key challenges that you see entrepreneurs are facing in your country or region, and how your program may help to overcome them. And also looking to the Q&A, there were some questions also in that direction, asking about which are the best area of opportunities to focus as a startup, and also about downstream and upstream. So if you can provide from your experience what you see and give some advice to our audience. I don't know if someone wants to start or we go backwards, so from Rachel and so on. So feel free to take the floor.
Okay, Paris, shall I say something on this? Yeah. In our experience, probably the startups are looking for initial funding, then the facilities. The more important thing is mentorship. These three are key factors which basically see the fate of any startup. The initial funding, because they are new to the subject, they have a lot of enthusiasm and fire in the belly, and they have a concept, but they do not know that experience, and they do not know the facilities, and they do not know the mentorship. Probably incubation centers, to some extent, they are providing the basic facilities, but as far as infrastructural facilities are concerned, the major organizations like clusters or Airbus like companies or national space agencies, they have to extend to support the startup system. Then coming to the mentorship, definitely it basically comes out of the experience and learning failure lessons. So the experienced people only can extend such kind of mentorships. Here, the retired professors from academia and institutions definitely will help the startups. This is what the approach India is taking, ISRO is taking. We are pulling up, we are making platforms for connecting accelerators, incubators, media, academia, and startups to a common platform. Wherever the gaps are there, that is being filled by the National Space Agency and supporting the startups. Of course, seed fund is concerned, federal government is extending the seed funding support, but individual departments, I'm not talking about the space, the other ministries like urban development, agriculture, etc., they have their own defense, they have their own seed funding supports. But venture capitalists, they do depend on the expertise from the national space agencies to just come to a conclusion whether the startup is potential or not. So such kind of facilities can be provided to the startups. Definitely the startup ecosystem will be very fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir.
Yeah, I would say I would sort of give some thoughts from Australia's experience. So our space startups, I think, have some challenges with misdirection and a lack of experience in the investment community and in the broader, let's say, government and commercial community with deep tech companies generally. So they're more and more experienced with sort of .com businesses that can set up a website and start selling on day one. They're much, much less experienced with companies that have a long runway before they can get to a stage where they can actually create a commercial level product. And space is very similar in that way to, let's say, a drug company. You know, and if you're doing a biotech product, whether it's a medical device or a drug, you have to go through so many stages to get to the point where you get a therapeutic administration approval, like FDA approval, or some approval to actually use that drug. And in space, in terms of upstream space, people who are flying hardware and so forth, you've got to get to that very high level of achievement technically before a customer will really take you seriously. So the advice that you need from mentors and the kind of things that you've got to do to support those kinds of startups are very, very different from what you might do if somebody had an internet startup, if somebody had a software-based business. So I think that's one of the key challenges that we face. And we're trying to educate everybody that we need to really create a bit of a venture village where the researchers and the big companies have to play that role of creating that collaboration pathway Thomas described, you know, that it takes quite a few organizations when it comes to deep tech to get you all the way there. I guess that's probably the key difference I see.
Thank you, Tim. You're right, yes. Thomas, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, well, thank you, Alexi. I completely agree with my colleagues. But, you know, I mean, it's different points. I would say first is the place, the facility, let's say, Suder. It's a place to be. You need to be in the right place and with the right ecosystem, right? Depending on the kind of business you're in. If we're talking about downstream and space applications, well, it's maybe space is going to be 10% of your product or services because you're going to be in a very strong market like mobility or agri-tech. So the main technology is not purely space, but so you need to be in the right spot for that with the right ecosystem, means the right clusters, the right incubators, accelerators, and I'm not completely space, right? But you need some space in it. So that's why we created Connect by CNES on the French side, but it's open to the world actually, because we're doing a lot of partnership. For example, I give you that example with India, where we signed a partnership with a space park in Kerala in the south of India. So we can facilitate joint venture between entrepreneurs from France and from India. So right away, you know, some French entrepreneurs have access to the Indian market, but the Indian market, for example, for agri-tech, right? So I would say this is very important, the right ecosystem, nationally, internationally, depending on where you are. Networking, access to the right partners and the right potential end users. And so we facilitate that, I would say, as a state agency, the French Space Agency. And of course, funding. I would say one of the main barriers for downstream is, okay, we have a lot of access to early stage and seed funding, but the pre-Series A to Series A, it's where in France, at least in Europe, I would say it's very, very tough to get. So a lot of very, very, very good startups, and we have a bunch, I would say, in France. Well, they will go to the US, to Asia, because that's what they will access to that scaling kind of funding, right? For high potential, high return on investment in the short term, which is downstream markets. For the upstream, it's a different ball game because it's very capital intensive. When you're thinking about the moon and technology to the moon, you're 20 years from now, right? But you need to think about it right now. When you see space in China, they're very strong now, right? They're running and seeing the way that moon is a big potential for science, but also for like commercialization of technology and translating those moon technology to Earth. And so here it's a different kind of thing, and we're at the beginning of it. So that's why we started the Moonshot Institute to, of course, educate VCs, right, to the potential of the moon commercialization, that moonshot for France and Europe, and the potential of translating those technology developed by, to, and for the moon, right, to Earth in a short term, right? But I would say that VCs here in France are getting ready to it. Right? So we're getting that momentum. So if you're a French entrepreneur, European entrepreneurs, you know that this Moonshot Institute for the Moon exists. So don't be afraid, dream big, think big, because we're there for you, right? And big, I would say, corporation space like Airbus is there as well. So this virtuous triangle, agency, startup, entrepreneurs, and major corporation primes, as we said, if we work together, for sure, we can make that game for, I would say, upstream space, innovative technology, especially for this next challenge, which is the moon.
Thank you, Thomas. maybe we are already at the end of the event, but if we can take maybe 2 or 3 minutes more, I would like to take a question from the audience, which is quite interesting, and it's linked to the current context. Do you think that the end of the pandemic can mean a new startups and space economy in general? So how the way out of the pandemic will impact the new space ecosystem? If you got a few thoughts before we close.
Well, one comment on that, you know, through the COVID, we saw the importance of digitalization of the economy, right? Digital, the data economy, right, drives everything, right? Today we're virtual, right? So we're completely digital. So clearly the new space era is very parallel to the digitalization of the economy and society, right? So I would say clearly now we see the potential of data. And we are just at the beginning of it, you know, leveraging of the data. You mentioned Pleiad, it was the beginning of this data, I would say, this data economy for space. So clearly today, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, all that are going to play a big role, I would say, is the next, the next couple of years for space. So yeah, COVID shows that digitalization is of importance for any kind of tech business today.
Definitely, and we are the proof of that right now. Any other comment? I think Tim, you right now, you raise your hand.
I'm just agreeing with Thomas.
Okay.
Shall I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Especially the pandemic has taught us how to connect internationally and how mutually we should depend on each other. So especially the space will play a major role there, because other sectors probably competition is more, but in space the collaborations and networking, international networking is very important. I think it is given us a very basic lesson, as Thomas said. They are coming, France is coming to India, India has to go outside, and everybody should mutually exchange the information. And especially in the MSMEs, there would be a lot of competition, but startups I have seen, there would be a lot of collaborative approach, sharing approach. I think this pandemic taught us a lesson to how to be together. Probably I think that will give a lot of boost to the space sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir. Rachel or Chris, would you like to say a word on the end of the pandemic? Hopefully, that should come soon.
Nothing else to add from me. I just agree 100% with what Thomas said.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with them. And also, I believe that after the pandemic, the economy will have a boom. But actually, it's not only because of the pandemic, it's also because when we resume the international travels, the international cooperation and communication will be facilitated. And I believe that will help the economy as well. That's it.
All right, and we look forward that we can meet all again, because I think that's also the essence of entrepreneurship, to make connection and to learn from the other in order to mature your idea. So I think on that, I suggest we close. Let me have a last slide. So I just wanted to thank all of you. So first, the panelists for the time you took from all over the world. Might be early, might be late. Thank you for being there. To the IF for giving the opportunity to host this event. I hope that was really interesting for the audience. I got also some question in the chat on how you can reach us. I would say maybe the first thing is on LinkedIn. You can find all of us on LinkedIn. Otherwise, I think you can contact me on LinkedIn. You will find me, and I will pass the information to the good person. So thanks again for your time, and see you next time. Have a good day, evening, morning. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.